certainly very interesting times between South Africa and the EU. A lot of bold announcements in terms of supporting South Africa, but also a mutually beneficial relationship between these two strategic partners. So to really just gauge a reaction. So when you talk about global gateway and just in terms of the mega projects and quite a number of areas from the infrastructure, but also a key sector around the industry when it comes to the pharmaceuticals, especially with the vaccine production. Let's get a reaction when it comes to that project. Joining us now is Stavros. So once again, thank you so much indeed. A very senior executive member from Aspen. Let's look at this particular investment. Obviously, it's a massive injection, a shot in the arm for our industry. Maybe just your immediate reaction to this development.
Kaya, firstly, thanks very much for having me on. And secondly, can I just say that this is a really important moment in the relationship between the European Union and South Africa. The EU is our largest investor, our single largest investor. It's also our single largest trading partner. And as we are seeing these geopolitical and geoeconomic shifts on a daily basis, it is really important to shore up relationships with some of your biggest partners, economic partners in this instance. Now, the package that was announced is a mix of both loans and grant funding. The exact shaping thereof will unfold in the coming weeks, but certainly it is an important development because there were 6 areas yesterday that in the declaration that were agreed upon, in which 6 areas of focus, and those included global pandemics as one of those. We have a long history with the EU when it comes to global pandemics. We all know what happened during COVID, and this is part of fulfilling those commitments made during COVID between the European Union and South Africa. Now, what will this mean in practical terms? I don't have to remind anyone by now, it's well rehearsed and well recorded that the United States is pulling out of, when I say United States, I'm talking about PEPFAR, USAID, is pulling out of some of the healthcare programs on the African continent. Africa has the most disproportionate disease burden, and certainly shoring up, bolstering capacity and capability to manufacture not just vaccines, because this also extends to other pharmaceutical products that came through in the declaration yesterday. Shoring up that capability is important not only for our country but also for the whole continent, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, and this is certainly a very positive and encouraging development, but one that we still need to tease out the details on in the coming weeks. And this, lastly, there is going to be a side event at the G20 mid-April, which is going to focus on pandemics and domestic regional pharmaceutical manufacturing, and this will obviously segue into that G20 side event.
And just once again, Stavros, I would imagine this is also quite key if you talk about Africa building its own capabilities when it comes to combating the pandemics, especially from the bitter lessons that we learned from COVID-19. And I would imagine that it's time really to reach out to the partners like EU and many others, other G20 countries that are still keen to invest here in terms of making sure that we're not literally caught with our pants down like we saw just a couple of years ago.
Quite right, and we have established capacity. I mean, Aspen has both capability and capacity to produce right now, in fact. What we need to pay attention to, though, and that's the relevance of yesterday's announcement, it shines another spotlight on the following, is that we need sustainable demand in the factories. We need a change in the procurement mechanism by the multilateral agencies that procure these vaccines, and even our own regional and domestic agencies that procure pharmaceuticals and vaccines need to ensure a sustainable demand. We need to see orders coming through. That's the only way you sustain factories, and I think this is a really good development in support of that particular message.
And just before we let you go, Stavros, I mean, what does this mean for the sector, but also just in terms of making sure that we're keeping up with times? I mean, obviously with artificial intelligence, innovation, and so many sectors that are so much involved here as well.
So yesterday, the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen made a comment, quite an interesting comment. She said, you guys, being South Africa, have access to everything to make you a highly successful country in the world. So she was saying you've got sun, you've got wind, you've got all these energy sources, but I don't think we should underestimate an emerging pharmaceutical capability here as well in that mix. And that is also why the EU are particularly interested in working with us on global pandemics. It's important to keep pace the rest of the world, which I think Aspen has done very well actually. We've got world-class capabilities, manufacturing facilities, both here and abroad. When I say here, I'm talking primarily about the Eastern Cape. And it's really important that we make those capacities, capabilities and expertise available for the continent, particularly at this time where we are seeing a rather capricious global epidemic emergence. So, the one day you're dealing with Mpox, the next day Marburg virus, and then the following week you're dealing with Ebola. So you're starting to see the emergence of all these, I call them little microcosms, but eventually they all build up. And if we don't have our own security of supply as a continent, then we are going to see again tragic consequences like we did 4 years ago during COVID. So this is really, really important that we as Aspen pull it off for the continent, and the continent is able to have both health security and security of supply.
All right. Stavros, thank you so much indeed. Of course, one of the senior executives from Aspen reacting to those developments, the major announcement by EU and South Africa in supporting each other in combating pandemics. So quite a massive investment in this regard. Khalihle Khumalo, SABC News, Cape Town.